What's up? This is Office Hours Part 4, the fourth iteration in a year. We've done one every quarter. Yep. This is the fall version. It's November? It's November something. We're here at a Waverly restaurant. We're gonna go get something to eat and answer some questions. And then maybe answer some questions afterwards. So let's go grab a bite. What do you say, Reuben?
Let's go.
All right, we're gonna do some rapid fire questions because last time I got a lot of responses, got a lot of messages that were like, "You guys only answer one question, so we're gonna answer more, but in rapid fire, and then we'll get into it." This first question is by Artist Redacted. Do you ever feel like you're starting to repeat yourself with your photography?
Yeah, and it's really fun when I go back through really old work from like 14, 15 years ago, and I see like many of the same ideas that I'm chasing even today. I mean, some of that repetition is innocent, you know. I would say when I detect that in myself, you know, that's when I start looking for something different, you know, start turning my back on things that seem like an easy win.
Hi DKMJR.
Okay. That rolls off the tongue.
His question is, have you struggled with taking photos of communities outside of your own in the past?
No. It's much harder for me to shoot my own community.
Gotcha.
I feel more exposed in my own community. When I lived in Sunset Park, I lived there longer than anywhere. I lived in New York, and it was the hardest place for a long time for me to shoot. I felt like I was very anonymous there, and when I started pointing the camera at people, it felt like I was suddenly going to be seen rather than being invisible, and so I was inhibited there in a way I was not in any other part of the city.
For somebody, how would you suggest somebody take photos of a community that they're not part of? I won't say in a good way, but in a way that's like respectable to the community, and or how would you do that? How would you approach that?
I mean, I don't really think about the respect part. I think about you know, going like a child goes, you know, just go be innocent and follow the things that make you go, wow, what's that? Or, you know, I've never seen anything like that. Like, that's where the best pictures come from, is when you see something you feel like you've never seen before. So maybe that's even the best way to take photos, is when you don't really know, like, how do things work here? It's a way of finding out, like, you know, what's okay with people here? What isn't? Like, how do people live? And I think, you know, we tend to do our best stuff that way.
Hannah Cassidy, creative, said advice for imposter syndrome. How often does that enter your mind, or does that like kind of hold you up?
It's in my mind, but it doesn't hold me up. Yeah, I mean, I think of it the same way I think about fear. I heard this podcast recently with Anders Peterson, who I look at as a hero, and he said, of course, it's, you know, it's fine to be afraid. Everyone's afraid, but you have to not be afraid of being afraid. You know, like, you have to just be okay with the idea that you're going to be afraid. And imposter syndrome is probably, you know, it's really the same thing. But you feel like you're not the real deal. Well, I mean, I've never met anyone worth anything who did think they were the real deal. You know, I mean, to the extent that I have any sense of being the real deal is just because I've stuck with what I do and not been pulled into other things that feel fake to me. So I'm being authentic to me, and that's kind of all I have. That's all I have to offer. So that keeps me from attaching to the imposter syndrome. But the feeling or the worry, that's, you know, I think everyone goes through that. Yeah, and you already have it. Right, you already are you, and that's a product of so many things that you didn't decide or control or choose. And then we get into an endeavor like art making, and we think we have to make all these choices about who to be and what kind of thing to do and what sort of influence to follow or school of ethics to attach to. And it's like, I think what's valuable, you know, in the great artists I admire is that they did their thing, you know, and didn't get swept away by these concerns.
This question is from Burgundy.Boots. Burgundy.Boots says he feels like, or she feels like, they're getting good street photos on paper, but none of them feel like their own work. How do they go about focusing on their own vision?
Tear up the paper. Yeah. Just don't even think you're taking street photos.
Single biggest factor that makes a good photograph.
Authenticity.
How long do you let photos marinate before doing anything with them? Doing anything could be like posting on Instagram or putting them in the zine.
Depends on how I feel about it. Sometimes it's a matter of a couple hours, and sometimes it's a matter of weeks, and sometimes longer.
Yeah, it's definitely like a feeling.
Yeah, there's no consistent answer to
Yeah, I'm the same way. We kind of talked about this on the walkie-talkie, but that was like over a year ago now. So Father Peyton asks, how to find a mentor or someone to guide them a bit on this photographic journey.
Find someone whose work or ideas you like and ask to hang out with them or show them work. Find somebody where you hear what they say or you see what they do and you think, man, that's really exciting to me, and try to get to know them.
What's your take on selling pictures as an NFT?
NFT to me stands for no fucking thanks.
Complimentary Events asks, what triggers your flow state?
My flow state is triggered by working. You can't wait for a flow state. You gotta just work, and then if something that you could call a flow state happens, congratulations. That's a lovely experience. But you might make your best picture of the day when you're not in a flow. So flow is a nice feeling, but it doesn't guarantee you. I've had days where I feel like I'm in an amazing flow and I get home and there's no pictures. Right.
That.guy.ron_ asks, how do you know if your photos have any feeling of value?
Well, do they feel valuable to you? Because that's the important value. If they feel valuable to you, they're likely to feel valuable to somebody else. But if you're looking at your work thinking this stuff doesn't have any value, then that's a big clue. It might not work for anybody else.
Elliot Beard asks, should I take photos at events like protests when I see them, or should I do research beforehand?
Both. I mean, if you're really interested in that, do your research. But if something's there happening in front of you, there's no reason to hold back because you think you don't know enough. Don't wait to know. Go to find out.
Every time we kind of put out a prompt or ask for questions, we always get a lot of like career-oriented questions.
Yeah.
And we don't have to answer them. But is there anything you can say about people having a career in photography, and like how they should go about it, and why we don't answer those kind of questions here?
I think probably the reason we don't answer it much is because it's not very interesting or substantive. It's not nobody gets into this for business reasons. Like if you're getting into taking photographs in this way for business, you're really barking up the wrong tree. There's not a lot of money in this. If you do well, like let's say even if you don't make a living, let's say you make something from doing this, there's no formula. If I told everyone like all the steps that went into me getting to where I am today, it would look insane and it wouldn't be a model for anyone. The only part of it that's a model to me is the only good advice I ever got about photo career was to just figure out what you really like doing and then just push that, and don't try and be everything to everybody and show that you can do every kind of thing ever. Just figure out what you really care about doing and then just push the hell out of that. That way, if you do have some success, you get to have the sweetest success of doing what you actually care about instead of doing what you think will get over. And, if you do, then you're really in trouble because now you're doing shit you don't care about. And if you don't make it, then you're like, man, I didn't even do what I care about.
Yo, so we're here. We found a stoop to sit on. Lunch was pretty good. Lunch was good.
Yeah, love the Waverly.
We're going to answer the question. We kind of scrolled past this question while we were at the restaurant. But this question comes from Fraud Consumption. He asks, how can I be original in a sea of street/documentary photographers?
So the thing about originality is that it's not something you find by looking at what other people have done and trying to do something else necessarily, though that may be part of how you find it. But originality to me is just an artist finding a real clarity in externalizing what they have in them already. The good news is everything's been done before. So you, like, all bets are off. Like, you don't have to even worry about whether what you're doing has been done before, because it probably has. So what's more important is it the purest externalization of you and what you're into and what you're excited about. If you're doing that in a really clear way, it looks like originality. Think of any photographer you think of as a real original, you know, where like they do something that is very identifiable as them. Mm-hmm. They've probably been horribly criticized as well, you know. Look at, you know, the real antecedents to any of us, like, you know, Winogrand, horribly criticized in his time. Deanna Arbus. So originality is something, it's not so much that you have to search for it as much as not get in the way of it. We have voluminous opportunities to look away from it. And, you know, I was talking to you earlier about, you know, when I look at really, really old work of mine and I see how cliche-ridden it is or how amateurish it is. It's sad, but it's also comforting because I think, well, I came from that, and I'm not trying to say I'm like some shocking original over here, but I do feel like there's something identifiably mine about a lot of my pictures, and it's come as a result of letting go of these things I thought were, you know, good ideas. But I know that all of whatever I was thinking was a diversion from what I already had in me. You know, it took a few years of getting this other stuff out of my system before then you're left with nothing, right, except yourself. Like, I think a lot about how, you know, you and I could be at the same situation, you know, something unfolding in front of us, and the pictures we make are going to be really different.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes a little hard to explain what makes that happen. It's not just a question of timing. It's not just a question of, well, I was standing 3 feet to the left of you.
Yeah.
It's like there's a whole other set of sensibilities governing the way you're dealing with that.
Right.
And getting to know those sensibilities and really embracing them rather than thinking that, you know, you have to have sensibilities more like the other guy.
Yeah.
To me, that's where originality comes from. One thing that's really helpful towards the quest for originality is dissatisfaction. Your dissatisfaction with what you're doing is the fuel for you finding something else. And every photographer I know who's pretty good is continually dissatisfied, right?
Yeah.
And that's what's driving their forward motion, their exploration, their discoveries, is the dissatisfaction. So if you feel dissatisfied out there, good news, you're probably on the path to something better just through that. If you're walking around thinking, man, I'm killing it, then I'm concerned for you because you may not be growing and you may be just doing stuff that's, you know, a reasonably competent picture to feel good about, and that's fine. But if your appetite is, like this person's question, is for originality, there's got to be some dissatisfaction driving that. You're on your way. Anyway, that's what I got.
Yeah. No, yeah. It's an interesting topic for sure. Hope that helps. Hope that answered your question, fraud consumption. And hope you can soon change your name to not fraud consumption. That's going to do it for this office hours as it exists in this iteration. It's not ending. I think we're re-envisioning how we're doing this series. Reuben still wants to make videos for you guys. I still want Reuben to be part of this channel. So we're kind of brainstorming different ways on how we can bring value to you. But in terms of this whole, like, we need questions, we'll have answers. That part is probably, it might be part of it, it might not be, but that's a loud noise. So that's our cue to end this video. We'll catch you guys next year. Peace.
Now when they see us in the streets, all they want to